fiat, obviously. So here comes Bitcoin, and a lot of people say a deflationary currency can't work. We can talk about that, but here comes Bitcoin with a scheduled fixed supply. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I look at all sides of the issue and
like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.
when I saw this, I just thought to myself, somebody's got to write this down. And then maybe more importantly, somebody's got to try and write it down in a way so that the average guy gets it, because you and I get it because we're in this world and this is what we do professionally. But the average person isn't even aware that this is an issue, and they're watching. They think that inflation is caused by greedy corporations because that's what some politicians tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I got to try and straighten that out. And so I just figured, hey, I'm going to do my best and write a book to try and straighten that out. I also happen to think, though, and I think you probably would agree, that it's kind of timely because things are really coming to a head. I mean, we're in a very big fiscal mess with a debt doom loop that we're in, and the spending and the deficits. And, we've already had a bunch of big prints. I mean, the book is called The Big Print, but, these big prints started a while ago. There was a big one in 2008, and there was another big one in 2020, and I think more are coming. And so, the pattern now is pretty well established. And I just thought, gosh, the average American's not necessarily started out that way, though. By the way, what's happened is Bitcoin's gone up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, it's a call to try to help people to understand that monetary debasement is going to hurt them, and that the two right choices to solve that problem are gold if you're more conservative and you don't want volatility, or Bitcoin if you want to be aggressive and you want more price performance. But the price performance isn't free, as you know. We've had some huge drawdowns in Bitcoin, and people have to be aware of that when they get involved in it. So.
Mm-hmm. So that leads to my next question, which is, when you use a phrase like "once in a humanity" to describe
I know it sounds hyperbolic.
Bitcoin's perfection, I seem to remember that your day job, you spend an awful lot of time working with emerging gold miners.
I do.
And
I do.
I wonder sometimes how you reconcile the once in humanity
fiat, obviously. So here comes Bitcoin, and a lot of people say a deflationary currency can't work. We can talk about that, but here comes Bitcoin with a scheduled fixed supply of 21 million. That's it. And so that's different. That's really different. And I don't think hyperbolically. I kind of compare it to there was an era pre-air flight, and then there was air flight, or there was an era pre the telegraph, and then there was the telegraph, it's an invention. It's a type of money without any dilution.
Mm-hmm.
And that I submit that's an invention it's a meaningful invention, because we've had thousands of years of monetary dilution in history, and now we don't have it in this new form of money. So that's why I make the statement. I know it, to some people, I know it's hard to get your arms around it, and it sounds extreme,
mm-hmm.
but it's factual. I mean, it's a form of money based on math.
Mm-hmm. So how do you advise? And I know everybody's investment horizons and
their wealth is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for watching our discussion here on Wealthion. If you would like help with your wealth efforts, please head over to wealthion.com/free for a free portfolio review.
So you mentioned in the book you think Bitcoin, and you're not predicting this, but you mentioned that with certain patterns, in 20 years, Bitcoin could conceivably hit $7 million a coin. That's the only time
That's crazy. I know it sounds crazy.
My question is, if you're even 100th right, how do you still stay motivated about everything else? I mean, in other words, we both have a common friend who I circled the paragraph you mentioned in 2018 when 100% Bitcoin. And,
yes,
how do you keep yourself from doing that?
I try to be a balanced guy, Trey. I mean, I just try to recognize that nobody knows nothing. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I look at all sides of the issue, and the possibility that you don't have to buy a lot of it, but because of this network, growth and valuation growth, you might be really experience regret if you don't have some of it.
Right. So you bring up in the book that the four sort of risks you've identified with Bitcoin are technical, regulatory, adoption, and protocol. And
Right.
I have to ask the devil's advocate question because
Sure.
you understand it much more than I do. I think it's pretty obvious from the tone of my questioning, but Satoshi invented this thing, or someone claiming to be Satoshi.
Yeah.
So what is to prevent someone from just inventing something better?
I think it's a great question. And it's, the MySpace, Facebook argument. I think it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
So primarily because the invention is actually in the proof of work and in the way the network got. But boy, if you look at the number of users and the size and the compute power, I mean, there's nothing even close. And so it would take something really substantial to bring something else along. And even if that happened, you'd have time to make the change. I mean, silver has kind of been demonetized by gold, and yet it's not worthless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we're talking about would be another coin demonetizing Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would be a transition period. It wouldn't happen in 2 days.
So Bitcoin's really been helped along by Trump. I think it's up 50% or so since he was elected, if I'm not mistaken. And, obviously we had the BlackRock entry with its $57 billion ETF, et cetera. So again, devil's advocate, if Trump creates a strategic reserve, say of Bitcoin, and it gets adopted by more governments and we have more BlackRock ETFs, just
on the forums where they were interacting with each other on email, those have all been preserved.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know a lot of the early people who were part of the process, including Hal Finney, who is now deceased, including a guy named Alan Back, who a lot of people think is Satoshi. And I think he's close to being Satoshi,
mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure he is. And I honestly, personally believe that there were probably a couple of Satoshis, and Alan's one of the candidates. Kind of the black horse. I mean, there it could be Jameson Lopp could be in there. There are probably 7 or 8 names, all of whom are candidates. And I think they probably got together and worked on it together. And then they recognized the danger and they wanted it to be pure. And so they decided, let's not anybody take credit for this. Let's just release it and call the inventor Satoshi Nakamoto. The dark horse is a guy named Len Sassamon. And if you Google him and do some research on him, you'll see he had, and he's dead too, sadly. He had but I think the math has caught up with him. I mean, I think, and we're seeing, witness the way that Powell had to create, twice as much money in half the time
mm-hmm.
in 2020 versus 08. So think of it as kind of like it's childbirth, like the contractions are getting quicker
mm-hmm.
and they're getting more painful for the woman. So it just kind of feels to me, it's just a gut feeling, Trey. I could be dead ass wrong. I mean, as you know, in 2008, I was absolutely convinced that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dead ass wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's no way to know and predict this,
mm-hmm.
but just think of it in terms of the way it's coming into the conversation, though. I mean, I talk about in the book, I hope you enjoyed the part about, Chris Leonard's book, hurting the Fed. I mean, here's a guy who's a New York Times reporter, and he was extremely critical of the Federal Reserve. I mean, he was saying some of the stuff around Paul. It's a question mark and becoming more of a question mark in everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think, as you and I both know, we think, gold's not stopping at 3,000. Gold's going to 10,000.
That was going to be another question. What's your 7 million for gold?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, look, if Bitcoin goes to as high as I think, gold is going to go multiples of today's price as well.
Mm-hmm.
They both, they're both sound money.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've used this in the past. I'll do it here. It's just, gold is analog sound money. It's great. 8,000 years, huge Lindy effect. And, Bitcoin is digital sound money, much newer, riskier, harder to understand. A lot of people aren't in it yet, but they're coming,
So, and a corollary to that, last year, the S&P was up 25%. And the GDXJ was up like 46%. This was in mid-October.
And then it puked.
One of the things that I think I've decided in the last year or two, I think gold stocks have gotten incredibly sensitive to rising real rates. So when Trump was elected, gold did its knee-jerk reaction down, but the stocks really took it. And I think, from the middle of October to the end of the year, the GDX went from being up 44% to being up 10%. So Now we've made up a lot of that in the first quarter. The GDX is up 20% or so.
Yeah, no, we got a good couple of months here.
Yeah, 3 on the S&P. But don't you think that presents? That was going to be sort of my last question. Don't you think that presents an incredible opportunity?
And I expect the gold stocks to go up 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my fund is an interesting fund. It's heavily into the gold stocks, and I'm very aggressive in the names I pick. So when I get it right, like 2019, the fund went up 99% in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, the fund went up 122% in 1 year. So in 2 years, I've given people 4x their money.
Mm-hmm.
Then I proceeded to turn around and lose the money for 4 years
Mm-hmm.
because, the stuff I'm in is aggressive, and Powell started tightening rates and liquidity got tighter and M2 shrank and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I look at my portfolio right now, and I sincerely believe that, everything in there could double or triple and it still wouldn't be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think gold stocks are going to be a very good place to be for the next year. Finally, I got to tell you, Trey, it's been a really tough slog. And even I, who am a big, huge believer in this whole category, have been discouraged. And so anyone who's in the gold stocks and has been discouraged, I totally get it, but I would just say don't. It has happened. It's been a hard ride. And a lot of my, and the fund is I'm actually gated right now because I had one very big unbelieving investor who wanted his money back. And I had to gate the fund. And so, it's been tough. It's been really tough. And I don't want to have to go through that again.
Well, Larry, this has been very instructive. Good to see you. And I want to look forward to in the next couple of weeks. Let's get caught up again and focus on
Happy to do it. Yeah, happy to do it. We can talk names if you like. We can do another one of these. But it's always good to see you, Trey. And like I say, I really appreciate your letters, really appreciate your friendship through the years, all the support.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've succeeded in convincing you to buy a little Bitcoin. I hope I have.
Mm-hmm. Not enough, but we're getting there.
Well, there you go. All it takes is a little bit. There's optionality.
Listening to you yesterday point out you can't be influenced by prior prices.
No, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And that's painful.